Hello my friends! Today we are back in my office and we're gonna be talking about a topic that both a lot of you and my real life friends like to ask me about, which is when is the best time to visit Edinburgh? Right now it is second half of February, which is arguably the worst time to visit Edinburgh, but we're gonna get back to that. For context, we just had two really bad storms, and I'm pretty sure that next one is coming over, and my sister is supposed to fly in this Friday, and it's supposed to be like 50 miles per hour winds, and I'm quite scared because I don't want her flight to be cancelled. So keep your fingers crossed for me and her, because if she can't make it here, then I'll be super sad. Anywho, before we get into the breakdown of individual months within our wonderful year in Edinburgh, I would just like to say that there's some things to keep in mind that are kind of in action all around the year. For example, the one thing that's predictable about Edinburgh's weather is that it's super unpredictable. People like to say that Scotland is super rainy, but in fact in Edinburgh on our east coast we do have more of a wind issue, which means that Simon is laughing at me. Okay, this is a shout out to all my fellow IBS sufferers. The windiness means that the weather can change a lot. You've probably heard the whole old story about like visiting Edinburgh or like visiting Scotland. It's like experiencing all four seasons all in one day. You know, some days truly are like that. But, you know, obviously it's not really that dramatic. At the same time, you know, if you're packing for Edinburgh, just make sure that you have like, you know, good waterproof gear, maybe, you know, a jacket with a hood, because it's kind of nice to go like on and off. You know, in the summer you might be really warm one moment and then like you get like cold wind the other moment, and you know, it's just something to keep in mind. Another thing is that for me, coming from Central Europe, I had to get used to the temperature reading a bit differently. So like for me, right now, today, it's 9 degrees or something outside, and it feels dreadfully cold. While if I was in Prague and it was 9 degrees outside, it would probably be quite a nice mild winter, and you know, I could maybe just have like a leather jacket on or something. Here, 9 degrees still means a full sort of scarf, earmuffs, gloves situation, because all the humidity and the cold wind really kind of takes the temperature down when it comes to how it feels, as opposed to how it reads on like a website. Anywho, so now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the wonderful months of Edinburgh year. January. So January often feels like quite a nice breath of fresh air, because you kind of get out of the Christmas period, and you know, when it comes to living in the city or visiting the city, December can be quite busy, and you know that we have the big Christmas markets and the Hogmanay celebrations, and a lot of people have like company Christmas parties, so a lot of popular places to eat will be really busy and bars are busy, and it can be a bit overwhelming if like you're not necessarily partaking in it and you just want to like live your life, or if you're visiting and you're not necessarily visiting for Christmas things. There's just a lot going on, and in January all of that goes away, and that's amazing. So basically in January it's not just the visitors from other cities and countries that kind of stop trickling in, it's also, you know, the physical space. As they take away all the Christmas markets, there's suddenly just like a lot of free space to roam around and enjoy the not that great weather, but still. Also, locals tend to stay indoors because, you know, they're out of money and they just kind of like went a bit overboard during Christmas or during Hogmanay. To me, January feels like the month when you can kind of take advantage of like even all the museums and galleries being kind of quieter, and popular restaurants will sometimes even have like special offers. Yeah, so that's a fun thing, because in January obviously you get a lot of seasonal sales after Christmas, so you know, shops might be kind of busy, but food places are a bit less busy, and they're trying to fight that by using sales as well. So for example, a lot of the Italian restaurants here in Edinburgh had 50% of the food bill all throughout January, which is a lot. So yeah, despite the weather in January being kind of dark and depressing, there's upsides to this month. One of them also being the Burns Night. If you're a fan of Scottish culture and Scottish cuisine, that might be a fun night for you to come over for, because a lot of local restaurants will have like a special event for that night. There's usually like a very Scottish menu on. Someone will recite poems by Robert Burns, the Odes to Haggis and all of that. And it's a really fun thing to be a part of. One disclaimer about January though, some of the awesome local small businesses will take almost the whole month off because, as I mentioned before, they just came out of a really touristy, like heavy traffic season. So if you have your eyes on one of these little great businesses, maybe the best option is to not come in January because there's a real possibility they will close down and have some time off. Keep that in mind. So, February, that is now, and it kind of sucks because it's starting to feel like winter is taking a lot of time, and also in my personal experience it is the month when you get the weirdest weather, like not in a good way, not in an exciting way. 2 or 3 years ago we had the Beast from the East that was also in February, I believe. So just based on my own experience, I would say that February is the time when you are risking your flights being cancelled the most. It is a pretty cheap month to come though, and days are getting longer. I would say that like right now we are hitting the spot when I finally don't want to just spend all day in bed. Sun comes out at probably like 7:30ish, so that's quite pleasant. I think that people are kind of slowly getting excited for the spring coming, even though like it's still gonna take quite some time before that happens. But yeah, that's the main great thing compared to January. Otherwise, probably wouldn't recommend coming in February unless you want to do something super romantic, in which case, if you want to come for Valentine's Day, then why not? There's a lot of businesses that have like a special menu or like some special drink offers, or even like special tours. Like we were invited to a special tour by the Meerkat Tours that are just on the Royal Mile, and they usually do like historical tours, and this one was also historical, but it was about sexy things. It was about sex scandals. Yes. In March, again, as you can imagine, logic would lead you there. The days are even longer now, and that's like you finally start feeling like spring is here, but it isn't. March still should count as winter in Edinburgh. Like March is when literally everyone's just like really fed up with the wintry weather. It's still kind of cold. March on paper sounds like a good idea, but usually it still isn't. You might get lucky, but you probably won't. April, on the other hand, is kind of a wild card month. Historically, there have been many long weekends in Aprils I've experienced here that were amazing. Sometimes like some of the weekends in April can be nicer than what you then get in the summer. So yeah, like your chances are getting really good in April. The trees are getting all blossomy, which is really nice, obviously, but just like one warning about blossoming trees. If you see them in bloom, just make sure you take advantage of it, like as soon as possible. If you want to, let's say, do like a sakura photo shoot in the meadows, which is a nice idea, very romantic. If like it only takes one super windy day, and we have a lot of those here, to take all of the blossoms off the trees. And then, it's kind of a nice visual effect when you have all the cars and everything just covered in petals and everything's kind of like white and rosy, but it's not gonna be great for your photo shoot. So keep that in mind. In April, you might also want to attend Beltane, which is on top of Kelton Hill, and it's like an old Celtic tradition, but taken to a kind of a new modern version of it. There's a big bonfire, but apart from that, you're gonna see a lot of kind of fire-heavy choreography, so it's kind of cool, like at night, very photogenic. As an alternative to that, if you're more of an indoorsy nerd, you can go to the Edinburgh Comic Con, which only costs about a tenner to attend for a day. If you're here even for like a couple of days, but the weather is crap, that might be a really good thing to do. Maybe, for a tenner, it's a great way of dipping a toe in the whole con culture, because that's definitely a lot cheaper than attending a Comic Con in, New York or London or San Diego. So yeah, give it a go if you're, inclined to nerd. May seems to be the best month to visit. At least that's what both me and all of my friends kind of agreed upon. I would say that May is often more pleasant than any of the summer months because you don't get nearly as many tourists in the city yet, but the weather can be really nice, and it's when people start barbecuing. You know, in Edinburgh, not many people have an actual barbecue, but most people will buy a single-use barbecue. So like if you're in the meadows, you can pop to one of the Sainsbury's around and pick up a single-use barbecue. They're usually about like $2.50 or something, or you can buy a bigger one for maybe like £4 if, you know, it's a group of 8 people, whatnot. I'm not here to tell you how to barbecue. That's not the point of this video. Anywho, it's actually really quite nice when you walk into the meadows and everyone just went, the weather's nice, we're not getting this very often here, so let's barbecue. Let's take half day off work and grill some meat or mushroom, if that's what floats your gastronomical boat. Just in case that the weather doesn't work out for you, you might want to take part in Tredfest, which is like a little festival of traditional culture of Scotland. I think it lasts for about 10 days or so, so it covers a third of the month. So, you know, if you're visiting in May, chances are that there's going to be some good traditional music going on in the city centre, and you know, if the weather's not nice and you're not barbecuing your mushroom, you might want to go see some fiddling. Now we're getting into the summer months, which, you know, you can probably imagine are the most busy when it comes to tourist numbers. Also, it's when the weather gets kind of more humid. Personally, I am not super into the summer weather in Edinburgh because the humidity together with the kind of temperature means that you never quite know what to wear. So if you wear a jacket but you also walk up Royal Mile, you're gonna get really sweaty and like kind of clammy and sweaty. Or is it just me? Did I just tell you all how gross I am every summer? Yeah, don't meet up with me in the summer, because I'm gonna just be a sticky mess. The obvious upside is that this is when the nights are really short, and in June the nights are actually the shortest in the year. In real life, that means that basically at about 10:30 you kind of get like a feeling like the night has started, but the sky never gets quite like as dark blue/black as you are used to from more southern places on the planet. It is quite interesting to me, like I am not used to this, so I still find it quite exotic that in June the sky never quite gets dark. I think that's cool. Anyway, you can take advantage of that and go to like Kelton Hill or Arthur's Seat if you're a badass and watch like a super early sunrise. I think like that's a super romantic thing to do. Alternatively, a super late sunset, but that's a bit less fun. By that point, you should probably still be drinking somewhere. In the summer, we also start getting more events. So in June, you get the Edinburgh Pride. You also get the Edinburgh Film Festival. You might bump into a celebrity or catch an interesting premiere of a movie that doesn't necessarily have a super wide release across the country. There is also the Royal Highland Show, which I've never attended, but it sounds like a super fun thing to do when you can see cows being rated on their beauty and like the country's most beautiful hens, and it just sounds really cute. Beautiful hens. Just keep in mind that the Royal Highland Show actually takes place right next to the airport, and it takes like 3 days, and during those 3 days it might take you a bit longer to get to the airport. So if that's on, you know, if the cows are being rated on their beauty while you're trying to get to the airport and get your flight to whatever your next exciting destination is, then you might run into trouble. So in July, now the kids are also, you know, off school and there's just people everywhere, and I just start hating summer. Yeah, like if you're visiting in July, you might really want to look into visiting some parts of Edinburgh that might not be like the top tourist spot. You know, like Royal Mile gets really busy, and you know, on Royal Mile you get these teeny tiny sidewalks, and I do get a bit annoyed when they're full of people, but that's fine. I'm not angry at any visitors. You know, we are all tourists somewhere at some point of our life. Like, you know, I get it. You want to see Royal Mile, you totally should. You know, maybe you want to visit all of these spots at night. I think that Gothic cities like Edinburgh actually look a lot better at night. So to avoid all the people, maybe just stay up for a bit longer, and then you can have all of the Royal Mile for yourself. As you probably know, in July it's not really the main festival month yet, but there are festivals to attend. There's the Edinburgh Jazz and Blues Festival, and there's also the Foodies Festival, and I mean some other smaller festivals, but I just wanted to mention these two because they are the ones that Simon and I respectively are interested in the most. The Foodies Festival takes place in the Inverleith Park, which is not like a typical touristy place to visit, but it's right next to the Botanics, so I think that it's actually pretty convenient. Okay, let's get to it. August. August is a month when, if you're a local and you're not into festivals, you hate August. It's like, in other cities in August, you get like really oppressive weather, like in Rome. Like, how they always say that the locals in Rome don't really spend summer in Rome, they just leave. I feel like a lot of Edinburgh locals who are not into the Edinburgh festivals probably do the same. And there were years when I really wanted to do that too. The festivals really only grew on me quite recently, in the past like 4 years or so, and since then it's always quite fun. But the truth is, there's like hundreds possibly of thousands extra people in the city, and it's really testing the whole infrastructure. So even like the practicalities are a bit scary sometimes, but it is realistically the 1 month in Edinburgh where you can really just like see like 50 shows in a week. Some of them will be free, yay! You will see a lot of performers in the streets. There's also the book festival, so it's not just the performers, it's also writers. The book festival is actually really interesting because I think it's this nice counterpoint to the Fringe Festival. So the book festival is very kind of like quiet and just like introverted, and if you see the book festival program, just grab it and have a quick look, because chances are that one of your favorite authors will be there. Like, it happens to me almost every year that I notice that someone whose book I read and really liked is there. Like, what are the chances? So many people write books, how did this happen? But yay! Another great thing happening in August is that because of the festivals, a lot of food places and drink places will be open a lot longer in the day than they usually are. There's also many pop-ups, and there's a lot of street food, and we don't really have that much street food any other time of the year. Maybe apart from the summer months, there tend to be some kind of like weekendy pop-ups for street food, but during the Fringe, it's like the only time when you have 3 to 4 weeks of actually being able to just leave the house and get into the city center and like trying 3 new things just from the stalls, just like eating them outdoors, at 10 p.m. Like, that's just, we don't have the culture of that here normally. So I really appreciate that. It's very different, very new for 1 month of the year, and then it just goes away and you're sad. Obviously, as you probably managed to figure out yourself, this is a very expensive time to be in Edinburgh, especially the hotels, and the flights tend to also be a lot more expensive than if you fly, let's say, in March or April. One thing that I noticed, and that might be a practical tip for you, you can actually rent out rooms in the student accommodation buildings. And if you've been to Edinburgh before, we have a lot of those. So if you go to a site like booking.com, they seem to be releasing rooms in these places basically at the start of each year. So when I managed to get those for last summer, I had to book them in January, but they were about 30 quid per night, which in the summer in Edinburgh is great, and the rooms are very nice. They're fairly newly built, and you can fit 2 people into one, but they must be comfortable with hugging at night. So a couple, but not like frenemies or something. Those would probably need 2 different rooms. So September, once again, kind of similarly to January, is a bit relaxing because August is so intense that in September you just kind of feel like you spent the whole August like having a really bad cold and just not being able to breathe, and then in September it's like, finally. You might think that Edinburgh becomes a bit more dead in September, but I would say that thanks to all the students coming in, there's like a little sort of second wind of things happening. Obviously, if you're older, like, you know, my kind of poor decrepit age, you feel like you're not really gonna get involved in all like the Freshers Week stuff, but it's kind of nice still seeing people moving in. I find it kind of inspiring, you know, walking around and seeing people moving in with like their parents helping them move stuff into the student accommodation buildings, and yeah, it's cute. Also, I would say that September, weather-wise, is possibly the second best month to visit after May, because yeah, September is basically like the May of autumn. It's the month when the humidity finally goes away. It gets cooler, but it's not quite like parka weather yet, like you wouldn't wear a scarf and gloves yet. That kind of comes later in October, which similarly to April can be a bit of a wild card. There's definitely days that are still very nice in October, and also, you know, the foliage starts to change usually like early October, and similarly to the blossoming trees, you have to take advantage of the trees being pretty before that like one windy day comes and takes it all away. That's always so sad. And no, Edinburgh doesn't really do Halloween, so apart from some kind of parties that you might get at like, you know, student groups or, you know, like with your friends just to kind of get a costume together and get drunk, if you're just walking around, you will not get any Halloween-y sort of thrill. But Edinburgh is kind of spooky on its own, so, you know, if you're in a Halloween mood, you can do a lot of sort of ghostly, spooky things. And honestly, if you ask me, I think it's an advantage that in Edinburgh you can do spooky things all year round, because Edinburgh is just spooky. Like once sun goes down, which in winter is at like 2 p.m, you can go do spooky, scary things. Also, we have the other Celtic celebration at that point. It's also at Calton Hill. It's called like this, and I was not able to find a good place to tell me how to pronounce it, so I'm really sorry. I'm not gonna try in Gaelic, but yeah, if you're looking it up on the internet, look this up. Anyway, it's supposed to be very similar to Beltane in terms of like there's a lot of fire happening, and it always looks really nice in pictures, and it happens on Calton Hill. November is kind of crap, basically all the way until the end of November. It's just really dark, and the start of winter, I feel like almost everyone gets really kind of like mentally sensitive to seeing how little daylight you're getting. And when you're not used to it, like maybe if you just moved to Edinburgh and, you know, like you moved here in September for your first, you know, semester or trimester, and November hits you, you feel like 3 p.m. is 6 p.m, suddenly you don't have any energy in your life, and it can be quite horrible. So yeah, this is when the seasonal affective disorder really starts hitting you. The only upside is that at the end of the month, it's when like all the Christmas stuff starts happening. And I know that some people are annoyed by that. Some people, you know, like to hate on Christmas, but I think that in countries where you get so little daylight during winter, it's a nice reprieve to, you know, finally have some lights to look at and, you know, maybe leave the house at 4 p.m. and instead of being like, oh, it's like windy and rainy and dark and there's like nothing nice happening around me, it's nice to go to the city center and maybe like buy some mulled wine and a sausage and listen to some, you know, Wham! And just like see how everything is alight in these Christmas decorations. I personally like it. I think it's quite like soothing mental health wise. Obviously, the other side of the coin is that the Edinburgh Christmas organizers seem to be really kind of like taking advantage of people generally liking them. So they're just like expanding and expanding, and it seems to be quite overwhelming. There's quite a lot of stuff going on, and yeah, honestly, November might be the best time to visit the Edinburgh Christmas markets, because that's when it still gets quite quiet. You don't have to elbow your way through hundreds of people, which is what happens basically all throughout December. And because it's dark pretty early, you know, you get to have the Christmassy mood really early in the day. So, you know, you can go 4 p.m. when, you know, there's really not going to be that many people because a lot of people are still at work. So, you know, if you're just a visitor and you don't live here and work here, you can totally take advantage of the days being super short for some mulled wine. And our grand finale, December. So as I mentioned before, a lot of Christmassy stuff is happening. There's gonna be a lot of locals being out to shop. There's gonna be a lot of visitors, not only from abroad, but from all like the cities around Edinburgh who want to come in to enjoy the Edinburgh Christmas markets. Everything at the Edinburgh Christmas markets, it's gonna be super overpriced, and everything in normal shops is gonna be super on sale, because I don't know how economics of this particular thing work, but somehow there's a lot of sales now before Christmas even starts, so yay. And we obviously have Hogmanay, which is both New Year's celebration and a humongous music festival, which lasts like 2 or 3 days, and basically the whole of Princess Street gets cordoned off, and you get a whole bunch of stages and people dancing and watching the New Year's fireworks, and you know, it sounds both fun and overwhelming at the same time. So I mean, I guess that depends on what sort of person you are when it comes to your New Year's partying. Obviously, it is also a great option to just meet up with your friends, have some drinks, and then go to the aforementioned Inverleith Park, which by the way is my top tip for watching any fireworks in Edinburgh, because like you're quite far away from the castle, but you have like a really nice wide view of it, and you see so much of the sky without having to be really close to it. So you can also really enjoy the fireworks there at the end of the festival, which I forgot to mention. At the end of the Edinburgh Festival in August, there's always a huge firework, and you get to like tune in to radio and listen to the music that it's supposed to be synced to. It's never quite synced perfectly, especially like if you're listening to it through the radio and you're watching it from Inverleith Park, because like before the light from the fireworks even gets to you, it's just, you know, physics, it's a bit off. But alternatively, you can get the tickets for the actual classical music show that's under the castle, and you get to see it the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so to summarize things, best months to come: May, September, and possibly June. Some people were quite in favor of June as well, but for me it would be May and September. May being the first one. May! It's also my birthday, so if you're visiting in May, drop off some prezzies. You don't have to. But if you want to ever drop off some prezzies, I collect these Starbucks mugs. If you've been to Edinburgh before and you'd like to kind of add something on to that regular Edinburgh experience, then you should definitely come for the festival time, so, you know, in August, or maybe for the Christmas time in December, or, you know, Hogmanay if you're a music fan. And if you just want things to be really quiet and introverted, then maybe try January or March or October. I think that those are all pretty solid for me. Very quiet, not that many people, but still, you know, you get to do stuff. I know I seem to be really biased against February. I don't know. February just always kind of messes things up for me. So don't come in February, it's cursed. Okay guys, I really hope this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below if you have your own opinion on this problem. What is your favorite month to come to Edinburgh? And, you know, if you're a local, what would you give your friends as a tip on when to come? If any of you lovely peeps wanna visit me on my other social media accounts, then you can totally do so on Instagram, where I exist under either kakibot, that's for my illustrations, or kakiblog, which is for my pictures, photographs. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't really do much there, so, you know, I'll put my Twitter here if you're like a hardcore fan of me. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you soon.